Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham, sitting in a different spot than I've been sitting in recently, but I'm joined alongside, right next to me. I can reach out and punch him, Chris Trevino.
Punch me?
No, I would just say it right here, boom, boom, boom. We got Shotgun over there remotely. I guess it's that way. Am I pointing the right way now? I think, yeah, perfect. And then we have some help in the studio, new USCfootball.com intern Jack Smith. You want to pull up your little window, Jack, if you want to, and say hi to the folks out there.
Hi, Trojan fans, and I'm happy to be joining you guys. Pleasure to be joined by Chris and Ryan and Shotgun. Excited to have a pretty good episode today. Glad to be joining.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and helping us out. So Jack's going to be running the board, which kind of helps frees us up to do a little more hosting things, because sometimes I'm trying to host and do, pull up your comments and all that. But he will be monitoring your Facebook and YouTube comments if you're watching on either of those platforms. And thanks for watching on Twitter if you're watching there live. And if you're watching the replay, you're going to get to see some of the live comments that were coming on during the broadcast. And we'll put up a bunch of questions for you as well. We're going to get back to doing live calls. We're just not going to do it this week, since this is like Jack's first time, and I was kind of setting everything up to get it all together. But we got the new format down now. Chris and I sitting next to each other. Chris, are you excited? You seem like you're excited.
I'm ecstatic, Ryan.
Static. Well, it's the end of fall camp. Fall camp is officially over. Classes start tomorrow morning on the USC campus. So USC will be back at it. All the players, and not the coaches, the players will be going back to school, unless you're a graduate student, I guess. If you're a GA, you'll be going back to school too. But the players are going back to school. We're going to have a regular sort of game week practice schedule now. There'll be Tuesday morning practices we can go check out for a little bit, talk to offensive players. Wednesday afternoon practices, and then we'll just get a Zoom call with Lincoln Riley. So this is sort of, I don't know if they're going to call it mock game week, but it'll be, it's sort of like a similar thing to next week. There's 13 days left until the season starts, so it'll be kind of a prep week this week, and then they'll get into complete Rice preparation next week. There'll be a lot of scout team stuff that we won't be able to watch, but we're now like into the regular kind of getting ready for the season, and fall camp is left behind. So Chris, maybe start with you. Any initial thoughts from what the fall camp 2022 was?
Yeah, I got some initial thoughts.
You got some thoughts?
I heard you were talking to Mad Smack last episode.
Really? About what?
What do you mean? You said I was
what did
at
I
the
say?
top of the You don't remember? You were talking all that smack about me?
Oh, yeah.
That was Wally Pip.
We were just having fun. Last week we had RJ Abadia stepping in because Chris had a prior engagement.
Here's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, he was very popular. RJ was very popular on the show.
Here's the thing. I didn't have a prior engagement. I lied because I wanted to get Wally pipped. And yet here I am back again. I did my best to get my Sunday nights back, but I'm still here. So
right.
It didn't work.
You work like 8 days a week anyway, right? You're just a hard worker.
What's another 2 hours of my life? But you want to talk about fall camp?
We got to talk about fall camp. We do love that you're on the show, Chris. We love it. RJ was great too.
That makes two of us.
Yeah, very good. Well, all of us, all the people out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what were your thoughts coming out of fall camp?
I think overall, I think USC, number one for me, just because I look at this a lot, it's USC came out pretty unscathed when you look at injuries. Obviously, fall camp, it's kind of your most physical time, going into a season, just being like a month away, and you look across the country and there's injuries happen to a bunch of key players all across the country. And USC, knock on wood, they managed to come out unscathed. Jude Wolfe having a foot surgery that's only going to keep him out about half of the year is the most significant injury that they had. And they have some bumps and bruises, kind of those things, but nothing that you're looking at and says, oh, this person is going to be out for they're going to be missing for the opener or missing beyond that besides Jude Wolfe. So I think first and foremost, they got a lot. They came out healthy, and I think that's really important, especially when, Lincoln Riley did a lot of live scrimmaging. They just had their second scrimmage on Saturday to close out thing. But, something Sean Newis said is like our live periods are like our normal periods. So they were going after it a lot this camp. So I think that's kind of the first and foremost thing is that they came out pretty unscathed, and I think that's a good thing, with 2 weeks left to the season.
Yeah, like there are a lot of times when you're talking about fall camp stuff, it's, oh, this injury, that injury. And really, they only, like the Jude Wolfe one was significant. We've seen some guys, miss some time. A guy like Romello Height, I think he's important because he's probably going to end up being your day one starter at a very important position at the rush end spot. It just seems like it's one of those things where they know what he can do. He's proven himself. There's some limitations there. But, guys like Corey Foreman, you'd have liked to see them out there more. He missed about 2 weeks of the camp. He was in practice, in pads on Saturday.
Missed virtually all of it, right?
Yeah. So he was back in pads. But someone like that kind of needs to prove himself. So we'll see. I mean, as long as, there's some spots, I think, where they're thinner. Certainly the rush end spot, we saw a little thinness, I guess you can say there. But overall, I mean, I think the depth in the secondary is a lot better. The linebacker depth is better. The defensive line depth is better on the offensive side, too. I think there's, as deep as you could be at wide receiver probably with the kind of talent they have. And, you don't have that many running back bodies, but until a couple, if a couple guys get hurt, I think you'd be concerned. But until then, maybe at the tight end spot, we don't even know how those are going to be, those are going to be utilized and stuff. And, if a Caleb Williams goes down, you're okay with Miller Moss, but, there's only a couple guys there too. So there's some spots. The offensive line, we're going to talk about that, the position battles and stuff. I think 7, 8 guys, I think they feel pretty confident in. But after that, same sort of thing. You're not that there's some concerns there as far as depth goes. But overall, it looks a lot better in the spring. Shadi, any thoughts that you got coming out of spring football?
Fall football.
I hate to
Fall football. Sorry, it's fall camp.
I hate that they say, "Oh, fall camp's over." There's still 2 more weeks of the season. There's still position battles going on. It's just you're not being on campus. Camp is over. Yeah. So, there's still almost half the preseason practices still to go. I think they have 10 left. I think what was yesterday, 14. So you're allowed 25 before the beginning of the season, I believe is the correct number. So, I don't like when they turn me like, oh, camp's over. Like, okay, you're going to play tomorrow? No. You're going to play in 2 weeks? You still got 2 weeks of build-up to go? Okay, then your camp's not really over. That's just my opinion on, the semantics of the terminology there. But, I think, like Chris said, the big thing is there's no injuries, significant injuries, season-ending ones. And particularly – you didn't have a spate of injuries at one position, even the smaller ones. Now, maybe you want to look at rush in and say that isn't one position where you've had some guys banged up and you hope that everyone gets healthy by the time the season starts. But you can move someone, picture a Tuli Tuipulotu there. He can move out to rush in. You can, manipulate that position a little bit differently. But no significant injuries to the offensive line, which is a position where the depth is a question mark. No significant injuries to a quarterback. No significant injury to a running back. So those positions where you're already a little thin on the talented depth, I think it's really big that they were able to avoid any injuries there. Now, you still got to make it these next 2 weeks as well. Like I said, this camp is not over, but so far, so good in that regard. And, I think we're starting to see some players break out a little bit. And I think it was interesting to hear the names that Lincoln Riley said have made the biggest jump from spring until fall, and how one of those was Sierra Wright, and is a guy whose name has come up multiple times, in this preseason, whether it be the media practice or the media availability that we had with them, or after the practices so far. So that's going to be it's still a very intriguing battle right there for that second cornerback spot outside of Mekhi Blackman. So I think it's been, really interesting to see that Sierra Wright's name came up once again, along with Mason Murphy, along with Zamarian Gordon, were the 3 players that Lincoln Riley pointed out initially yesterday.
Yeah, good stuff, Shotgun. As far as the depth and stuff goes, we were talking about some of the different spots. Sierra Wright, it's a deeper cornerback group, but the fact that he's emerged as one of the guys that's getting first-team reps is really interesting to me, especially because there seemed to be that kind of rift between him and Dante Williams in the spring. That seems to be over now. His acting career, he's doing good stuff there, but he seems to be doing good stuff on the field. So that'll be interesting to watch. But He talked about, Lincoln Riley on Saturday talked about some rotations that he was planning on doing. If you remember, we talked to Josh Henson, the offensive line coach, offensive coordinator at the USC Media Day, and he talked about, remember when he was at Missouri, that they had like 5 veteran guys, and then they actually rotated in like 3 younger guys, and all 3 of those guys ended up being NFL players down the road, but they got them some opportunities. And I don't know if they have enough depth there to do that. We might, I think there's some guys that they like. You might see that, but he specifically talked about, rotating at the wide receiver spot, which makes sense. You got a lot of wide receivers; those guys rotate in and out. But he wants to see on the defensive line. He feels like there's enough depth to do that there. So I think it's something I think it's common because you want to keep guys fresh, but also in the secondary being able to do that's not Brian Odom said there's no rotation, right? He's going to pick his guys and you're going to go with them. There'll be different. You're targeting different things at different times. So you might have different, groups of guys at the linebacker spot, but in the secondary as well, doing some sort of rotation. So maybe you see a guy come in at nickel on different downs and, rotating safeties and things like that. But I thought that was kind of interesting, Chris, some of the rotations he planned on using.
Yeah, the cornerback is interesting, but it's not like we haven't seen that before. Obviously, when Isaac Taylor-Stewart, Elijah Griffin, and Chris Steele were here, they had sort of a three-headed starter rotation with those 3 guys. So it's not all that unique in that sense. So I'm not surprised that they're doing it. I mean, Mekhi Blackman, I think overall is just your number 1 starting cornerback. He's the guy you're going to kind of put with their top receiver. Riley shouted him out again for being one of their defensive standouts. So I'm not surprised with him kind of being that stud, that veteran guy there. And then you kind of, search for that 2 deep, whether it's, Sierra Wright obviously been holding down the other side. Prophet Brown, Jacoby Covington has really made strides moving up onto the 2 deep. And Josh Jackson, who, didn't miss out on spring a little bit, but he's back now. And I saw him working with the 2s as well. So he got kind of like
looking good. I
Yeah,
think we have a picture of him, Jack. If you want to throw him up there, I think he's pretty ripped. Right, he's yoked a little bit.
He's a little yoked for that cornerback spot, for that cornerback position. But you kind of have like 5 guys there that you're kind of just searching to get that 2 deep. And if they're talented and they're making plays, especially how this defense uses defensive backs, Grinch mentioned, it's not about who's playing free safety or who's playing strong safety or nickel. It's like we're going to put the 5 best defensive backs on the field. So it seems like they're still looking for that and trying to get that 2 deep settle. But I'm not opposed to seeing, a little bit of rotation, especially when they have some talent, but young talent that needs to get playing time. They need to get some reps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen this in the past with talented players, not just the rotation you spoke of with the cornerbacks, but rotations where you have 2 established starters or 2 guys that are the definite first 2 guys at a position, at cornerbacks, at safeties, whatever it may be, but you want to get a talented young guy in there. So Damani Jackson, I expect him to get some playing time, whether it be 1 series in the first game, 2 series in the first game, and then as the season progressed, maybe he takes a couple more. And that's something we saw with Adoree Jackson, something we saw with Iman Marshall when they came in as 5-star cornerbacks, as true freshmen, getting those opportunities. And so you want to see those guys. And, you want to see, if Eric Gentry doesn't start at a middle linebacker position, you want to see him in there getting some playing time because he's only going to grow and get better at a position that he didn't play last season when he's on the field and getting that opportunity. Same thing with Corey Foreman. You're going to want to try to get him in the rotation, even if he's not starting. So those young, talented players that you think can become dudes for you, you got to get them opportunities early. And, besides when you can blow someone out and they get some chances at the end of a game, you want to see those guys. If you think that they're, really talented and going to be players for you down the road, you want to try to get them and work them in to the general flow of the game, similar to a guy like Rajon Davis in the photo there. Want to see him on the field and get him at least some snaps so he can get a feel for the game a little bit more and for his assignments, especially when you can play Rice and when you play Fresno State in week 3. You want to get those guys in there because even if they make a mistake, you feel like you overcome that against those type of opponents.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I was going to say cornerback is definitely one of those positions where it's baptism by fire. You just got to throw them in there at some point because sometimes you're on an island out there and you're under a microscope, and when you get beat people know that you got beat. So
Yeah.
you got to get out there and just rip the Band-Aid off. They're never going to be ready. They're going to make mistakes, and we've seen it. Even Kalen Bullock made a lot of mistakes last year, but you saw that talent, and they have a lot of talented cornerbacks, and they need to get them out there. Whether there's some growing pains, there will be. This is a young secondary, but you need to get them some time. You need to get them some experience, and most of all, you need to get them some confidence.
Yeah, for sure. I saw Jack. Thanks for putting up. Mark had a comment. He said the helmet's back.
Yeah,
Yes.
back.
So people ask sometimes about Nicole was doing a great job. Jack's basically taking over the job that she was doing before. She graduated from USC, got a job in the Waco market, so she's covering Baylor football and high school football in the Waco area. But she had borrowed the helmet for a photo shoot for her graduation, and I met her mom and got it back. So she's gone now. But we've connected. We got the helmet back, so it's back. And then also make sure you smash that like button. You got to get a like. We need some more likes there on the YouTube page or wherever you're watching. If you're on Facebook or on the tweets, you can like the tweet and all that kind of stuff.
Are we still on Periscope?
It's not Periscope. It's Twitter Live now.
Okay.
And we get some people watching on the Twitter Live too, so it comes right up on our Twitter. Yeah, but we're live on all 3 platforms all at once. We do have your live comments if you're watching live. We will put this up in podcast form afterwards. So if you listen to our podcast feed, if you're listening to this now, that's where that comes from. And we try to do all those things. Try to reach you in as many ways as we can.
The next evolution needs to be Twitter Spaces.
Twitter Spaces. We could do that
live
too.
on Twitter Spaces.
I haven't done the Twitter Spaces. We could do. I mean, there's no reason we couldn't just do this live on Twitter Spaces. But we're not. We would be holding the feed the whole time, right? Twitter Spaces, you kind of hand off the mic. It would just be our mic.
Which is dangerous. We could never hand off the mic.
No, because this is a produced show.
Yeah.
Like Twitter Spaces is more just kind of like off the cuff kind of thing, from what I understand. But but anyway, thank you for doing all that. But we'll put that up, and then next week we will start taking live calls again. I think the schedule is going to be Thursday night shows, previews, and Sunday night shows, recaps. So we'll be doing all that kind of stuff. So it should be a lot of fun. I want to talk a little about position battles too. We kind of talked about some of the secondary stuff. The main one being, and Lincoln Riley talked about this. It seems like Jonah Monheim is the number one guy at the right tackle spot. The veterans in the middle with Andrew Voorhees, Brett Nealon, and Justin Dedich. Then at the left tackle spot, we didn't get to see Bobby Haskins because of the injury in the spring, but he's come on strong. It seems like battling with Cortland Ford, who looks really good to me. I've taken some pictures of him. Shotty's great camera. It's fun. By the way, taking Shotty's camera, it's
Makes
like
makes it look like a good photographer.
He looks good. I mean, Cortland Ford makes the camera look good. He's just looking good. I want to get you guys' thoughts on that left tackle spot. The loser of that might end up over at right tackle. We're not sure, but it seems like it's a pretty, and as far as position battles go, it seems like it's the most intense one right now. Chris, get your thoughts, and we'll get Shotty's too.
Yeah, I mean, coming into fall camp and even spring camp, prior to the news of Haskins' injury, the left tackle was the most important job that you needed settled on offense, and then arguably the entire team as well, just because obviously you need to protect Caleb Williams, so Caleb Williams can do Caleb Williams things. Obviously, he's a dual threat. He's got the ability to move, but that can't save you all the time, and you need to be able to protect him, keep him upright. And they have, obviously, a veteran offensive line, but Haskins was also a big pickup, maybe not the sexiest addition for this team, but I think it's going to be a critical one just because he's a guy who has left tackle experience, and he's a guy who's a veteran. He's a guy who's mean. He's got some size at 6'7". So not having him in the spring was big, but now that he's here healthy, trying to get back up to speed, really it would give Cortland a chance to, one, take his game to the next level with that competition pushing him, and hopefully lock it down, or you're going to get a veteran guy with experience starting at your left tackle. So I think either way, USC wins, and then whoever loses out, maybe they're going to the right tackle. I'm surprised that even Lincoln did kind of he pretty much said, Voorhees, Brett Nealon, Justin Dedich, Jonah Monheim, they've he more or less said those are your starters right now. But he did leave that door open with that comment about, Ford or Haskins. They're smart enough. They have the ability to play another position possibly. And it's not going to be left guard. It's not going to be center. I don't think it's going to be right guard. So naturally, you're looking at possibly Monheim having to compete again to lock down that right tackle job. So it's going to be interesting, and the ripple effects of it. Just from what I've seen in camp, it kind of looks like Ford has the slight edge just because Haskins has to catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
So right now I'd probably be leaning towards Ford being your opening starter at left tackle. But 2 weeks left. A lot can happen in 2 weeks. We don't get to see the full practices, so maybe we're getting rope-a-doped a little bit. Maybe they're putting Haskins in once we leave. I don't know. And maybe they're putting Ford at right. I don't know. So we'll see. But I would say, just based on what I've seen, I feel like Ford probably has the slightest edge going into these last 2 weeks.
What about Shoddy? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that Ford's got the advantage here. I think you'll see both guys in game one. I think that's something that Haskins. The question will be, I think Jonah Monheim has got the right spot locked up too. I don't think whoever loses that left is going to overcome him. But the question for me will be, if Haskins is the guy that doesn't win the job, do we then see him kind of play a little bit of both in the first game? Say, hey, let's get you some time at right tackle as well. Because again, this goes back to the media not being able to see the full practice. We don't know how much he's been working at right, or if he's strictly been at left, and they just trust that either him or Courtland Ford can play right if need be. But I think it'll be interesting in that first game, and that'll be another thing I'll be watching for is what's the rotation of Bobby Haskins, whether he's a starter, whether he's a backup. Where does he go? Does he stick solely at one spot? Is he bouncing back and forth? How many series does he get if he's not the starter? He's one of the guys on offense I think is the most intriguing outside of the skill positions with the wide receivers. I just think it's going to be really fun to see who has completely emerged and how many times they rotate those guys. How often can they let guys get into a good flow of the game type of thing? I don't know. I think it'll be interesting at the wide receiver position, but otherwise, I think the one spot is that left tackle and Bobby Haskins, what he kind of does.
Yeah. One of the other spots, we talked about the linebackers not having a rotation, so there's, could be some battles and stuff there. I think Racer X had a question on YouTube about what do you think the starting linebacker rotation would be?
Well, one, there's not going to be a rotation.
I mean, not rotation.
Based on Odom's comments, starters are going to be starters. They're going to play. So he's not big on rotating. So whoever's, number one, I feel pretty confident that Shane Lee is going to occupy one of those starting spots.
Yeah.
Since he walked in day one, his impact has been felt on the field and off the field in the locker room and the weight room and stuff like that. So I think that guy's a team captain candidate, and I think he's pretty much more or less locked it down unless he's not healthy. And he did seem to be banged up a little bit in fall camp. There were some practices he did not come out in pads, or he seemed limited based on stuff we saw after practice. But I would say number 53 is a pencil in for the starting lineup if healthy. And that other one is a little bit intriguing. Obviously, Raylan Goforth, I think, has had a really good spring, really good summer, and it seems like he's been holding it down for that weak side linebacker spot, that other spot. And he looks bigger, he looks faster, and these are things that he talked about in the spring. But again, we can't see full practice because we can only see really that first kind of team pursuit drill.
Yeah.
And as far as I've seen, Raylan has been the number one guy there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you saw that
next to Shane Lee.
But if you saw sort of the Twitter theory, Eric Gentry's mom was getting into some fans on social media talking about how Eric's been running with the ones every practice since the first couple ones. So that's interesting to see it out. Maybe she's mistaken, but I don't think she's mistaken. So it's probably when we leave the room, or excuse the room, when we leave the field, maybe Eric Gentry's getting a lot more one rotation, first team rotation than we're led on to believe, because he's consistently been over the last several weeks after the first practices that we saw, been running with the second team. So I don't know. Right now I would probably say Raylan Goforth and Shane Lee, but Eric Gentry's coming.
Yeah, I would say that. What do you think, Shoddy?
I mean, this is also a mom who is not at practice either, so it's not like she's watching it. She's getting secondhand information on that. The clips that we've seen of Eric Gentry, including his interception in last Sunday's scrimmage, he was running with, it appeared to be the second team. You're looking at some of the other players that are in the highlight clip on the defensive side. Those are second team players. Now, he's a guy that I know that you want to get some opportunities for. So even though Brian Odom said that, the first team guys are the first team guys, I think that's a guy that you want to get some playing time for, especially in those non-conference games when you have an opportunity early in the season. So I think he'll be a guy if he doesn't start, and I think that's going to be determined by Shane Lee's health. As long as Shane Lee is healthy, I think he'll get the start. And then I think right now, I think Goforth is the guy that's been leading the charge there with the first team at the other spot. So if Shane Lee is healthy, then I think Gentry is a second-team guy, but I think he's a guy you want to try to get in there and get some opportunities, get some experience playing inside linebacker after you played on the edge last season at Arizona State.
There was a little kind of newsy stuff. USC Athletics put out a tweet today, and I didn't really know this was even going on. I got a text from someone I know that covers University of Tennessee football and was asking about why is USC blocking Bru McCoy from being eligible to play. There was some sort of Twitter campaign. I didn't see a lot prominent people tweeting, but there were like a lot of bots or people with like no followers that were kind of.
Because you're above it. I'm down there in the mud.
Are you in the mud? Was there a lot of mud?
I'm with the little Twitter pigs, baby. I'm rolling around with them.
Were you rolling with the Twitter pigs?
I had people messaging me, or not messaging me, but tweeting at me like me personally, like, why don't you sign it? Why are you blocking?
Why did you block Bru McCoy?
I told him I cleared it.
So
check his email. I told
Chris
him.
apparently was blocking Bru McCoy.
Yeah.
No, but USC put out a statement today, and I can pull it up here and read it for you guys. I think we'll have it up on the screen. USC has, consistent with NCAA rules, promptly and accurately responded to all requests from the University of Tennessee related to the eligibility of Bru McCoy. At no point since Bru entered the transfer portal in January have we objected to him being made immediately eligible to play at Tennessee. The issue of Bru's eligibility ultimately rests with the NCAA, and we wish him the very best. So it's basically like, hey, man, ain't us. We're not doing anything. We're not stopping Bru from being eligible. So I don't know if that's going to stop. I know some of the Tennessee Twitter people, that's probably not going to stop them. They're like, they're probably still doing it. I don't know. But it seems like.
What was that actually?
Was that terrible?
Do it again.
Yeah.
Do it again.
They're blocking. California's blocking them. Oh, no, whatever. Is that better? Okay. Any thoughts on USC's statement? Either of you guys?
I mean, I think the thing that should be pointed out is that this could be USC saying, that you're only. I think the new waiver rules are you're only allowed. There's no longer the hardship necessarily, but now it's only if there's a disability or if there's immediate danger or harm to the player. So, I think someone on one of the Tennessee message boards actually had a good look at it and said if that's the case, then USC is probably going. They're being asked to sign off on some narrative where Bru was in some type of danger, he was in harm because of the back and forth with the female that he was arrested for. Later, the charges were dropped, all that type stuff. So if there's this environment, USC is probably been like, we're not going to sign off on anything that we can be sued for in the future. So there could be an illegal issue. So maybe it's not just straight USC being like, you do whatever you want type of thing. So they're just kind of putting things in the NCAA's lap and saying, this is not us. We're not going to be involved. We're not going to be in the middle of this type of thing.
Yeah. Like maybe USC is not going to do backflips to get them eligible, but they're like, hey, man, we're not blocking anything. But
this all stems back to the fact that Bru McCoy was at USC and then transferred to Texas and then transferred back to USC and now transferred to Tennessee. So remember, it's a one-time transfer rule that is now allowed in the NCAA. After that, it goes back to you're supposed to sit out a year. So, Bru McCoy was able to get got a waiver to come back to USC, and then unfortunately he had the illness that didn't allow him to play, I believe, the 2019 season. So, he comes back, was able to play some in 2020, and then this whole thing happens last year. Now he transfers out again, but he's already transferred twice, even though one of them was, spring camp, basically after a couple weeks to Texas, and then coming back to USC. But in the NCAA's eyes, this is his third transfer. So that's part of the big issue of the holdup for him and whether or not he can be eligible right now.
All right. Speaking of wide receivers, Jack, you want to read this one? We got a comment about Something about the wide receivers. We'll get you in here.
Yeah, so Ed from YouTube says, who do you guys predict to be the starting wide receivers? I know this is something that Coach Riley talked about in our post-practice presser the other day, is that this is a position they're trying to figure out how much to rotate and who to rotate guys in. I think we all know how much talent the SC has at wide receiver right now, so Ed wants to know, who do we predict to be the starting wide receivers?
It's super easy, Ed. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You think
That's
it's
it.
going to go that way?
That's what it's been the last couple days.
Okay, so Gary Bryant is
Yeah.
1. Brendan Rice
Got
is
it.
2. This guy named Jordan Addison, who happened to win the
Purdy's
Bolitnikoff,
good.
is 3. And Mario Williams is 4.
That's an incredible receiving core, and I think that's it. And probably you'll get, C.J. Williams off the bench, Terrell Bynum off the bench, stuff like that.
You can go 0, 1, 2, 3 also.
You
with
can
Terrell
go 0,
Bynum.
1, 2, 3. Yeah,
I like
1, 2, 3,
that.
4. You're
The
not going to get
question
5. You're
is-
not going to get 5 though. Obviously.
How do we get to 81? How do we get to the Cal 4?
It's a long way there.
That's
Well,
He's
He's got to get on the field first.
You can't go 0 through 5 because you're only allowed 5 skill position players on the field. So you can go
Yeah.
0 through 4. But the question will be, how many wide receivers do they put out there initially? And they've got so many, different ways that they can mix and match here. And that'll be kind of intriguing to see, who matches up with who. Do they try to get certain guys together on the field at the same time? Or is it just, hey, you're rotating at one spot? But I think I would like to see them start out the season with Raleek Brown, Austin Jones, Travis Dye, out flexed out with a tight end and Darwin Barlow in the backfield. Let's go. Let's get 4 running backs on the field at one time.
You're crazy, girl.
I like that.
crazy.
I like the 0, like the 1 through 4 or the 0 through 3, and then you could bring out the running back package. Raleek Brown's in the slot. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I think you're definitely going to see Jordan Addison. You're definitely going to see Mario Williams. I think the third spot, I think that's the one that's the most intriguing. And I think that because, you're looking at Brendan Rice or Gary Bryant, as those have been 2 of the guys with the ones. If you're going with a traditional 3 wide receiver set with a tight end and a running back, who's that third guy? Is it Gary Bryant or is it Brendan Rice? Those are 2 completely different body types, and you can move them around and put them in different positions. But maybe based on what you're trying to get out of that drive or out of that specific play may determine which of those is the third guy that comes out there.
But that's so much speed. Like
Lot of
Jordan
speed.
Addison, low 4.5, probably 4.4 now. Gary Bryant, we know, is a 4.4, kind of 4.3 guy. Brendan Rice, while he's 6'2", he was running 4.5 in high school. And then Mario Williams, maybe not top end speed like those guys, but super quick and shifty. Like so much speed with that unit.
Yeah, we got a Taj
And then you could potentially throw in, Raleek Brown, and you got even more speed
Shotgun,
in there as well.
How much Raleek Brown stock you sitting on?
No,
Be real with me.
I'm still just buying low right now as much as possible.
I don't know if it's low. I don't think it's low.
I'm buying. It's low right now for what it's going to be. I'm telling you.
All right, I'll text you after. I want to get in on that a little bit. I'm not gonna take as much as you have, but I want to get some. I want to get some early.
It's definitely notable when you see every time there are highlights, Raleek Brown is in those highlights.
Yeah.
So that means he's making a play every single time. They have a scrimmage every time if there's something, a live period and it's being filmed and they're going to put together a little highlight clip. You see that 14 flying through there at some point.
Or just Dylan Baxtering him, putting him out there.
No, it's not Dylan Baxter. It's not Dylan Baxter. Listen, we could definitely tell this was different from this in the one spring highlights and living off of that. But Dylan, I mean, the crazy thing about Raleek Brown, I wrote about him on Saturday, is that the number 14, I think, is the craziest part. And some people may look at it, hey, 1 + 4 = 5, because he's like Reggie Bush, and maybe that's why he's wearing 14. Skill players don't wear 14. I mean, there's one guy that you can think of right now in football in general, and that would be Chris's boy, Stephon Diggs. But that was because in the NFL he couldn't wear 1 at the time. He wore 1 at Maryland, but then he's wearing 14 for the Bills. But in college, the number 14 is not a wide receiver number. It's not a running back number. Quarterbacks wear it. The last notable name at USC was Sam Darnold to wear 14. But besides that, you have to go back a decade to look for a notable number, and that's quarterbacks. You have to go back half a century to find. You got to go back to like Don Hudson that wore 14 as a wide receiver in the 40s or 50s. Like that's the last time someone wearing the 14 really stood out. Or Bolitnikoff himself. You know, it was the two names that came up as the two big wide receivers to wear 14. So Raleek Brown, running back / wide receiver. I think that's just it's gonna be intriguing to see it. And I think it's the fans that aren't keeping up with things but are gonna get super excited on September 3rd. You know, that are in the stadium. They're like, 14? Who is this 14? What is a 14 doing out there? What is he making all these plays for? I got to know who this guy is. So better read the article from Saturday because Raleek Brown's going to do some things.
Nice.
Two questions. Do you think who scores a touchdown first, CJ Williams or Raleek Brown?
Oh, that's a really good question, Chris.
I know, that's why I only ask really good questions.
It's Brown.
This is like the former Family Feud Take It or Leave It segment where Chris would come up with some really good ones. But I'm going to go with Raleek in this one.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
just because I think it's going to be hard for CJ, even though he's been getting some one reps, is to fully break into that rotation. I don't know.
And
I think Raleek is such a dynamic playmaker that you can mismatch with defenders that I think he'll get a couple more opportunities earlier.
Will Raleek have his like true freshman Stephen Carr moment where he broke off that like 57-yard run that kind of made everyone go whoa?
Yeah, he'll have a whoa for sure.
In the opener? That was the opener, right?
Against Western Michigan, yep.
Yeah.
He broke open that game in the first or second play of the third or fourth quarter, and then I think Marvell Tell right after that had a pick six, and it went from being a 6-point game or something to a blowout, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, we beat Western Michigan."
Yeah, Jack, did you have something you wanted to chime in on?
Yeah, Shoddy, is that a receiving touchdown for Raleek or a rushing touchdown? You got to double down on the prediction if you've got so much stock in him.
I've got stock in him. I don't have stock in what his highlight plays will come. I just get the ball in the kid's hand and let him make plays. So it might even be a pass that is technically a run. How about that?
Now you're just getting weird with it.
A swing pass to him. It's technically a lateral, so therefore it's a run.
It'll probably be a swing.
Let's get weird, Chris. Why not? It's Sunday night.
If you guys don't know, so by the way, I just want to give little props to Jack. Like literally, Jack had about a half hour of training on how to run the board, and he's like crushing it. He's doing everything well. And then when he speaks, you're like, because he does play-by-play, so like he has the radio voice and stuff. So he sounds better than all of us already. That's terrible.
I told people to pick up his rookie card.
Yeah, it's good. If you had the Keeley rookie card like 7 years ago, you'd have been like rolling in it. So
I got like three. I got 3 in a safe.
Oh, really? Yeah. You got to get the Jack rookie card. So thanks.
You got to tell me where I can find my own rookie card.
Yeah, we got to get that. Like that. What are those NFT things? I'm sure there's something like that.
I can get you guys special like autographed versions that'll be worth more. Down
Oh,
the line,
I like it. That's good. Yeah, but it's not like you can just hear. I'm like, it sounds it's like listen to butter. I like it. All right, I did a poll. So as far as conference realignment stuff goes, I know that's kind of slowed down a little bit, but UCLA had their Board of Regents thing. There's like talk about could the governor or the Board of Regents stop UCLA from going? I don't think any of that's going to happen. But there was some emails and stuff that came out. There was a lot of negative feedback. Now, granted, I think this was early on, from UCLA fans like, this is terrible, we don't want it. And I think even the beginning when USC fans kind of started to digest it, it wasn't it was popular, but wasn't necessarily
something going on fireworks.
We got fireworks going out there. It wasn't the most popular thing, but I put a poll up on the Peristyle this week about, I didn't want it to be a debate, like if it's good or bad, just like, hey, do you think this is a good thing? Is it positive? Do you want to go to the Big Ten? And it was 95.5%, and I forget how many people voted. There was like 1,000 or whatever. But it's overwhelmingly popular with USC fans. So UCLA might be like second guessing themselves or whatever. It's no question with USC. They want to be going.
Was it essentially the same question we asked the day it broke?
So I asked the day it broke on Twitter, and it was actually like fairly close. It was like 50-something
percent,
I think.
But
that was on Twitter. Yeah. So Twitter, I have a lot of Pac-12 fans, but on the Peristyle, I think it was more in the 75-80% range that first day. So that's moved up now on the Peristyle to like over 95%, which seems pretty high. I mean, there's going to be people that like, I want to do the weekender every year, and we don't know. The Big Ten is the new media deal came out for the Big Ten. It basically just means a boatload of money for all the Big Ten schools, which USC will now be one of them. Gonna make a ton of money. It's gonna be good. But yeah, what does that mean going forward? But it sounds like there's an opportunity with the new media deal to expand further, and maybe they do get a few more West Coast schools, so they have that late time zone as well. If you like late kickoffs, it doesn't seem like USC and UCLA are going to be involved in many of them because The game windows are the 9 a.m. game, on the West Coast, which probably not going to see a lot of USC in those or UCLA. But then you got the 12:30, which was the 3:30 game CBS got. USC will probably be in a bunch of those. And then the primetime game on NBC, I think USC will be involved in a bunch of those too. So I don't think the late night kickoff thing, if you're not a fan of that, I don't think you're going to see a lot of those in the Big Ten unless they sign some more West Coast schools, and you're going to see that window as well.
Shout out to CBS, the parent company.
CBS, our parent company.
The Eye.
We got the Eye. We got some big games on there, so that's going to be fun. The Big Ten games.
I'm a company man, a company shill, so
yeah.
Anytime I can.
They sign the paycheck, so CBS, so it's on my paycheck, CBS, so we're gonna like it. Shotgun. Any thoughts on that? Chris is right here.
I thought it was really interesting, how the Big Ten has kind of set this up to be kind of that NFL model of where you want a game on basically all day long. So you have the early window game, you have that midday game, you have the primetime game. Now maybe they don't have the late night game at this moment, but if expansion continues and they pick up a couple more teams from the West Coast, then maybe you'll see that start to happen a little bit too. But basically for an East Coaster, they're on throughout the entire day for you from noon to 10 p.m. So I think that I thought it was really interesting how they set that up with the three primary companies that they did. Obviously, not being on ESPN, my question will then be, how much does ESPN promote the Big Ten? Does ESPN kind of forget about them, not show their highlights as much as they would previously because they don't want to be showing a competitor on their own station? So I think that'll be interesting as the progression goes of this media deal, is to see how ESPN kind of responds to it, because think about how ESPN has shown hockey, how much they show hockey now on their highlight packages and stuff versus what they were doing before, during the 10 years or whatever that they were not, affiliated with the NHL.
Yeah, I was listening, I think it was Andy Staples, and they had a good point that one thing the ESPN has done a really good job of, and they were talking about game day specifically. I mean, they've gone to like North Dakota, they'll go places. They'll go to, they'll be at they'll still be at, at Michigan. They'll still be at the Coliseum. I think they're going to still continue to do that. And it's just not as important to be like, oh, it's the highlight stuff. But I think having those early kickoff games, I think that's helped Fox a lot, that 9 a.m., because whatever your big game is, every highlight show is going to be showing those games. Like the USC games, and when you're playing late at night, there's not a lot of opportunities to show highlights from that. So getting some of the earlier things, I think ESPN will still show that stuff. But, are they going to feature the ACC and SEC more? I would think so, yeah.
Well, I'm thinking more like, when you have all their window of debate shows, like how much is the Big Ten brought up then versus, hey, there's an SEC topic that's similar value. They're definitely going to go with the SEC. So I think that they're going to play favor to that. So it's just going to be interesting to see, and it'd be interesting, if someone did a study of, what it is this year or whatever versus in a couple of years, just the mentions of Big Ten teams, and see if there is a disparity there across the network over a selection of days or whatever. Because the college football playoff show, yeah, they're still going to show it. College game day, they're still going to show it. I'm just thinking about in general, their general shows that aren't college football specific. I think it may be a little bit different.
I think the playoff is going to be such a big part of this. And then, the way the Big Ten's featured this is like NBC will be promoting the CBS game and Fox will be promoting the NBC game, because they're all going to be cross-promoting, just like we see in the NFL. I think Kevin Warren, the commissioner of the Big Ten, he's using this as an NFL model coming back from the NFL. And I think, the reason he was blocking the playoff expansion then was because he wanted multiple bidders, so Fox and others. So I think CBS, NBC, Fox, ESPN will all have pieces of the playoffs, and you're going to be promoting it. Like the playoffs are going to be, they think that's going to be $1 billion thing all on its own. So everyone's getting a piece of that. So you're not going to not talk about Ohio State because they're not on your, like if Ohio State's undefeated and they're a potential playoff team, you're going to be talking about them and stuff too. So I think it's going to be all right. And I don't think, 5 years ago, if you weren't being talked about on First Take or something, at college football, it might have mattered. I don't think it really matters now. Like people aren't consuming that. But we got a young guy here in Jack. Like I don't think they're watching that kind of stuff. They're watching like stuff on demand. They're not like waiting to see what comes up next and what are they talking about?
They're watching TikToks.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I'm watching football, not TikToks.
Okay. But you're watching the live broadcast. You want to see the
Oh, absolutely. And I think that SC fans have already had to deal with either Fox or ESPN. And I mean, we literally had a visitor in one of our classes last year who dealt with the programming of both of those games, and Fox and ESPN would draft which game would show on which network at the beginning of each year. So I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal. Have you guys seen the overlay videos though of the CBS SEC music over like Big Ten and SC highlights? It's something that like after watching CBS football for a while definitely seems weird.
Yeah, because all the SEC looks as their song, and I think it was, I figured it might have been Andy Staples too, where he said watch, because he gets into all this stuff. He's like, it's not going to be an SEC song anymore. It's going to be a CBS song for college football. And I think SEC fans were like, what, crazy? And then there was a new commercial for Fox, right? That you tweeted out about.
I didn't. Well, I quote tweeted about it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a big. Was it Fox? It's a Fox Sports. What is the thing?
The big noon
kickoff.
Yeah.
Preview for them, and Lincoln Riley pulls up in a Porsche, Lamborghini. Ferrari. I think it's a Ferrari, and he throws the keys to Brady Quinn. So smooth, just so cool. He probably did it one take, and it was it.
It's like,
probably his car too. People were saying it was in Palos Verdes, I think.
That's where he lives.
Ryan's probably been there.
Well, that's where he lives. So yeah.
I know you probably have a story from that place. You're like,
that might. Well, I don't have to go back and look. It could have been like so. In PV, it might have been like Trump, like at the because they have a big valet place,
something else,
or Terranea.
There
like,
it is.
Terranea, yeah. So they have like pull-up places where it's like fancy and stuff. Yeah, I just played golf there the other day. It's
there
nice.
you go. Yeah, he just pulled up, super cool. He's like, "It's your car now, bye-bye. Go watch it. It's so cool. It's so cool.
Go check that out."
Yeah, and SoCal Dad, which is the photo of the questions on the screen. What do you guys think of the commercial with Riley making a cameo there? But also, it's a USC commercial because you got Riley in there, but you still got Matt Leinart, you got Reggie Bush. So, the former Trojans obviously being on the Fox Big Noon show or the countdown show beforehand. So I think that, USC is going to continue to get love from Fox.
Yeah.
Well, Leinart had his lawn defaced with the Michigan logo, so didn't get to pull up in a Ferrari. He had a painted lawn.
Yeah, that's true. He's a Manhattan Beach guy too.
They were all within
South Bay.
10 minutes of the shoot or whatever.
And we're right here. We're like 10 minutes of the studio where we are right now.
I saw some like Oregon Duck fans like making fun of it. I was like, I didn't see Dan Lanning in that commercial, so I don't. Lanning Dan, whatever you call him.
I call him Land Danning.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing. The podcast Champions plug. Check that out. We're gonna like pick all the games for the whole Pac-12 this week on the show, so that should be a lot of fun. All right, well, let's get to questions. I think those are all the topics I wanted to talk about. We want to pull up some questions here, so Jock can pull some up that he finds suitable, and then he'll read them off to us.
Yeah, let's go with this one first from Brandon on Facebook. Got to show some love to the Facebook comments. Question: who do you think will be USC's bigger test, Utah or Notre Dame?
I think Utah for sure. Utah's legit. Now Notre Dame's ranked higher in the AP, but first-year head coach. Utah's got all the guys coming back.
Road game.
It's a road game,
in a tough environment.
Game. Yeah. So I think Notre Dame's going to be pretty good, but I don't think they're a number 5 team in the country. Utah, I think, could be a top 5 team. I think Utah can be a borderline playoff type of team if things kind of go their way. But USC is going to be, that's going to be probably that's the toughest game for me. I don't know. Any different, Shotty?
No, I think it's Utah because of the environment. I mean, it's going to be the first time that, or the last time that USC potentially plays in Salt Lake City in the Pac-12. So, it's going to be rowdy. I think the Muss is going to be going crazy because I think opposing fans are going to be going crazy at USC and UCLA without it just being a big game in and of itself. So I think it's going to be really fun out there. And I think I booked my flight to Salt Lake City the other day, so I'm excited to get out there for the first time to be able to experience the Muss myself.
Yeah, it's a great place. I think College Game Day have a chance. I haven't looked at the schedule.
They're undefeated,
but even 2 undefeated teams. Like, why wouldn't you want that?
Or if Utah, if they don't win at Florida, they can still run the table to get there.
I think they'll win at Florida. Yeah, that's a big one for the Pac-12. Utah's got to win at Florida because you got the defending champ. Playing a mediocre SEC team, you got to go. Even if it's on the road, you got to go and get that win. Thanks for the question, though.
Yeah, next comment, Facebook from Steve this time. It's, do you see a time when Miller Moss gets regular playing time that is not at the end of a game or during a blowout?
So
unless you have an injury.
Yeah, like he'll
They're not going to do it. It's not going to be a 2 quarterback rotation of any sort. So barring an injury to Caleb Williams, outside of end of game, you're not going to have he doesn't have a particular skill set that's drastically different than Caleb Williams. It's not like he's a super mobile quarterback and Caleb Williams is a statue and you say, hey, let's try to do something a little bit different. So otherwise, I think it would take an injury for him to get regular playing time without being at the end of a game in a blowout.
But Riley has been very complimentary of Miller Moss. And a lot of times when he gets asked about Caleb Williams, he brings up Miller Moss. So, if the offense is humming like you think it's going to be, he's going to get a lot of playing time. So I think it's going to work out well.
Here's a question from Brandon that actually has to do a lot with Lincoln Riley's comments and his post-practice presser the other day. Who will be the most improved player on both sides of the ball? And we saw that Coach Riley already started to name a couple people that improved just from spring to fall. So just about both sides of the ball, who do you think is the most improved player?
What do you guys think?
Are we talking, I guess, just anybody or?
Yeah, why not? Someone on offense, someone on defense?
I'm not ready.
The first name that stands out to me on the offensive side would maybe be Kyron Ware-Hudson. He's a guy that I've heard a lot of positive things about, a guy that barely played at all last season, played a little bit, got a couple catches in the finale at Cal. That's the first name that pops to my mind on the offensive side. I think Mason Murphy's a guy that Lincoln Riley mentioned, and he's the guy that I think the more reps he gets just throughout his career, the better for him because he just hasn't played football for too long. So those are the two guys on the offensive side that kind of stand out to me.
I like Malcolm Epps. I think he can.
Oh, that's a good one too.
I think he could have a really big year, especially with if Jude Wolfe was going to be out for a while. I just have a feeling like you're like after like 2 weeks you're gonna be like, holy crap, Malcolm Epps is having like a huge. So I mean the talent's there, transfer from Texas, but I feel like he could be someone that just becomes like he's a dude you got to talk about now. Like, we got to talk about Malcolm Epps because he's just blowing things up.
Offensively, I would say Gino Quinones. I mean, that's someone who's gotten praise from Lincoln Riley on multiple occasions. And, we talked to him, I believe, last week, and he talked about how he feels like he's really developed under Josh Henson, even though it's been a short amount of time. Really good spring, really good summer. They need depth at that offensive line position, so you're hoping, Mason Murphy, I think people are confident that he can, develop a little more during the season when he gets some time. But Gino's another one as an interior guy because they need interior guys. So to actually get him on the field, he's only played in 5 games, and they were special teams games, so he has not played a game in college at offensive line. So that's a guy you really want to get. You want to reward him for all the work he's put in, see him out on the field, and get him some tape and see what it looks like. So I would probably say Gino because that's someone whose name has been buzzing all of camp.
Yeah, I think defensively too. Like the fact that Sierra Wright's been running with the ones, I think his name's going to come up there a lot. We've seen Kobe Pepe getting some time with the ones there too, right? So he's been, at least when we see those defensive drills, he's the guy that's out there. And if they're going to do a rotation on the defensive line, he's just someone I kind of like. Every time I see him out there, I'm like, he could be a dude, So maybe I'll pick him too.
So the next question that we're going to bring up is, I think, an interesting one, and then you bring up Malcolm Epps. It's from G Greens on YouTube. More receiving touchdowns from the tight end room or from the running back room?
Receiving touchdowns. I'm going running backs. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like Austin Jones can catch the ball. Raleek Brown, if you're going to count him as that, I mean, he can catch the ball. Travis Dye can catch touchdowns. I'll go receivers. Running backs.
I'll just, as a former tight end, I have to go with the tight ends, even though I feel like it's close. But Malcolm Epps is obviously like 6'10" or whatever he is, so he's like really big target. And then Lake McCree is just, we know how talented he could be catching the ball.
Yeah.
And that highlight, he hurdled a dude for a touchdown. It's like, I think if they get going, I think they could consistently get some scores week to week. So I will go with the tight ends.
What do you think, Shawty? Break the tie.
We knew that Chris was going to go with the tight ends because of how much stock he's had in the tight ends over the years.
I've lost millions.
So since my investment's been in Raleek Brown, I'm going to go with the running back room.
Boom. I like it. I think the good thing, though, is if either of those groups has like a good touchdown total list, like that's going to be really good for this offense. Like if your tight ends are scoring a bunch of touchdowns, your running back scoring a bunch of receiving touchdowns, it probably means the offense is really clicking, I would say.
Still trying to find a next question. Make sure you guys are leaving your comments on Facebook.
Yeah, put
YouTube.
Put question on there so it's easier. It's you got to scroll through and find some. And I know Shawty, you had some written down if you want to go there too. And
yeah,
give Jack
the Meadows Abel, I think is how it's pronounced. He said, which home game is the first sellout this season? I thought that was a pretty interesting question.
Ooh. Okay, so Rice
obviously
is the opener.
The schedule is Rice, Fresno State, and then Arizona State, Washington State, Cal, Colorado, Notre Dame is the home schedule this season.
Sellout.
I think the biggest potential will probably be, I mean, you could for Fresno, but I think, because they'll bring some guys, I think Arizona State
If
might
they're
be.
undefeated, I think
Yeah,
you could
because
sell that out.
you would have gone on the road, beat Stanford, you would have beaten, and you
Oregon
probably beat the
State.
brains out of them. You go to Oregon State and you win that one on the road, where Oregon State was undefeated last year. Coming back for ASU, who knows what the Herm thing, like the Herm train might be off the rails by that point. Like I think there's some potential for that one. Coming back home, people are excited. This is 4-0. They're starting to talk about college game day for the Utah game. Like that might be a sellout. I would say like the conference opener, Arizona State. I would go with that one.
Conference home open.
Home opener, yeah. Yeah,
And
two conference road games first. That's kind of weird. Yeah.
We got another question. This one about rotation from Craig on YouTube. Does Alex Grinch use a lot of subs, or will we see him run a lighter ship on defense or a tighter ship on defense?
So we also have a question on YouTube is how do you guys feel about defensive rotations because former players that played under Grinch complained about rotating too much at OU. So I think that kind of lends itself together there that you're going to see rotations. Now, do they trust – how many players do they trust at each position I think is going to be the question. And, you know, they've got a lot of talented young players. So I think even the older players that may start, you know, they want to get some of those young guys some opportunities. So, you know, we'll see how the rotations kind of work out themselves, whether it's, you know, it all comes down to how many players do you trust? Because you're not going to throw somebody in there if you don't trust them. And that's the key thing. And, you know, whose decisions does that come down to? Usually it's the position coach that decides how deep that rotation actually goes.
Yeah. Hey, we're at 84 likes. We need to get over 100. So hit that like button on you if you're on YouTube, and if you're on Facebook and stuff too, and if you're on Twitter, retweet us, do all that kind of fun stuff.
I think what Shotty said is interesting too, because we heard Coach Riley after the practice the other day just say that they've got 5 or 6 guys on the interior D line that they want to play, that they want to get out there onto the field. So you're going to see a lot of rotation there, but I think Shotty's right that it's just based on how many players they trust and how many guys that they want to see out there on a football field.
And you know, if you rotate in the defensive line, everyone does that, right? You want to keep fresh bodies. You want to get after the quarterback.
Going hard every snap.
You're going super hard every snap. If they're not going to rotate the linebackers, the weird part will probably be if you're like moving corners in and out and stuff like that. But maybe people don't. You want to get a rhythm. You want to feel like, hey, I got an idea for what this receiver's doing. Oh, I get taken off the field. Like I could see that being the potential. But otherwise, I don't think there's going to be a problem with that. You guys want to go next one or who's?
Shotty, did you have any more questions lined up?
Yeah, we always have questions over here. Andrew asked, does Miller Moss have QB2 locked up? That's a yes. You know, you don't want to get to QB3 and have Jake Jensen in there, guy who's a junior college transfer, bounce back from BYU. Big T, want to know, Ryan,
Yes.
who are the 5 most yoked players coming out of fall camp? And now that you've used my camera, you've got a chance to get a pick of guys up close. So who are your 5? At least 3. Give us 3. If you get to 5, we'll get to 5.
Yoked players. Okay.
Unofficially brought to you by Muscle Milk.
I like. Ooh, fake corporate sponsor.
Yeah,
We don't have it
a little
like
bit.
we could do a real sponsor here for the tunnel vision. That's tough. Let's see. I like. I mean, I think let's do relative yoked. So like I'm going to do relative like we've seen it before. Like to me, like Kalen Bullock looks so much better than he did last year. I would say on a relative scale.
So you're not just going by
like total
you're
yokeness.
going like pound for pound. You're not going.
We
by
could-
You're not-
size.
You want me to do total?
You're not
yokeness?
going with off the bus rankings?
We could do off the bus. Okay, so
Yeah, first
I
5
think-
off the bus.
I think Romello Height is like one of the dudes you have to have,
Mhm.
right? Like even with his yellow jersey, he still looks like just a man out there. I think I would put Cortland Ford on the list. He's someone I want coming off the bus. He looks just yoked.
That's 2.
Shane Lee, I
Yeah.
think he would be on the list. He's got to be, the 2 SEC guys coming in.
There were times when I was looking at him trying to figure out if he was wearing pads or not. When he was out of pads, it took me a second.
Those would be my top 3. Like pound for pound, though, I would definitely put Bullock in there. I like what I saw from Michael Jackson early on. He's been out for a little bit. For Josh Jackson too, I think he was at like the jersey was like half jersey. You could see he just looks like he's a ripped dude. Anyone other guys you guys would put in that list?
Well, I think Corey's first off the bus as well.
Corey Foreman, yeah, we get to see him. He looks good.
Yeah, but you've seen him, especially if he has. We want to see him in pads.
Yeah, he's got like
that's
the
what
bucket
that's
hat
what all the
on.
fans want to see.
Bucket hat on and sneakers on the sideline because we're mostly seeing that.
I think Voorhees is there. Any guys that can drop 40 on the 225 bench press, probably a guy you want to come off the bus pretty early.
That's true. I like that. Yeah, he's a tough one. All right, great, good one.
We got a question from the beginning of the show. Andrew on YouTube. Question: which coach is the loudest when coaching?
Alex Grinch.
Yeah, I was saying Grinch.
It's no contest.
Well, he has the most volume of screaming, right? But I think he's the loudest too.
I would watch him mic'd up doing anything.
You did mention that. I wouldn't want to be yelled. Like I don't think if Alex Grinch is in the room yelling at me, there's one thing. I don't want Sean Newey yelling at me. Like I would rather him not be yelling at me than almost anybody else. Is that fair? Does that make us?
I think that's fair.
That's usually the case with any defensive line coach.
Yeah.
Just look at the ones that USC's had recently. You don't want Kenichi Udeze yelling at you. You don't want Chad Kawaaha. You don't want You definitely don't want Vic Soto yelling at you. You don't want to be on his bad side. So I think any defensive line coach, usually that's the guy you want to kind of stay away from getting yelled at if you're in a room, especially. Maybe you can outrun them if you're in a field, but if you're in a room, you're in trouble.
I think Zach Hansen would scare me the most because he's such a nice, sweet guy, although he's huge. But if he was yelling at me, I'd be like, "Uh-oh, there's something really wrong." It's like mom using their middle name or something. If she never does that, you're like, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble now."
I think that I think it was Malcolm Epps that said, he's a cool dude and everything, but if he yells at you, you messed up, basically. So he doesn't yell very often, but when he does, it definitely has some impact.
Yeah.
Another question about the punter this time. SoCal Dad back on YouTube. How is the Aussie punter looking?
Very blonde.
Yeah. He looks like he's
We don't really see them punt at all because there's no, under Helton, we would have, an hour and a half of special teams.
Yeah, we can't
to watch. So we don't really
we don't get to see
punting.
We can't tell you
lot.
booming punts. Yeah.
But I can tell you he's got a great nickname, Sleepy.
That's his name, Sleepy?
Sleepy.
I love it.
But Riley said both those specialist spots are still up for grabs. So
yeah,
seems like Dennis Lynch is giving Alex Stathouse a run for this kicking job.
Dennis Lynch, very popular player. If Sleepy was if you said he came up, he's a freshman from La Cañada High School, you would be like, yeah, I could see that. But he's from Australia. Then you hear him talk, it's different. Then he's not.
I haven't heard him talk. I want to hear him talk.
I know we haven't heard him either.
And to go off of what I said last week, I said that he has a relative that had punted at I believe it was Arizona State and Iowa. That was his older brother. It confirmed going through all the bios and stuff.
Aiden Sleep Dalton, a great name.
Yeah,
I believe his brother was Michael Dalton. So
his brother's Michael, and then he gets the Aiden.
2 A's.
Yeah,
Aaron.
And it's funny. I think I've mentioned this before. I was looking him up on some Australian kicker site, and they had AI. They didn't even have it spelled right. But then the USC roster has it AA. So I remember you mentioned that, and I saw him listed online as AI, and I'm like, oh, but whatever. Yeah. So we'll get to see him when you guys get to see him. Maybe you don't get to see him against Rice. I don't know. You might never see him against Rice, but at some point you're going to see him punt the ball.
We got another comment. What area do you guys think our defense will finish out by season end? They're asking top 10, top 15, top 20. I would assume they mean nationwide. But there's another comment about whether we'll be top 5 in the Pac-12. So thoughts on the defense?
Oh, that's interesting. And then it depends, the antiquated stats are what total defense and stuff. What are the cool stats for defense?
We went off
points
total.
per drive or total
Well, we kind of got a similar question to this on the composite 2-star plug.
But you guys were
Oh.
way off, by the way. I listened.
Oh.
Gerard thought Oklahoma had.
I wasn't off.
Okay.
I was right where I needed to be.
Well, your partner was. So you're
But
the host. You
the
should,
question
steer in
was,
the right
where
direction.
does USC's defense need to be ranked to get to the Pac-12 championship and to be a playoff contender?
Yeah, but Shaka, what should we use? What metric? Total defense is kind of antiquated, right?
Points per game is pretty standard. Points have obviously gone up. So if you're comparing this year versus some other year, that doesn't necessarily work. Comparing it to 2000 even or 1950, that doesn't work. But if you're comparing it to where they are nationally ranked this season, I think that is pretty standard across the board. So you don't necessarily have to have a number of points per game. Last year they gave up over 30 points, first time ever at USC. They've given up more than 30 points. and ranked 103rd, I believe, out of 130 FBS teams. So, if you're in the hundreds, that's not very good. And so I think to answer the question that Chris and them got, I think you have to be at least top 50 to be in that. And I think you can still score a ton of points to be able to overcome a defense that's in the 40s or whatever. But I think you got to at least be top 50 to be in that conversation.
Well, we kind of looked it up, and I don't think you need to be top. I think you need to be top 100 for sure. But I think what I went with is like 75 to 76 because Oregon was in that range when they made the Pac-12 championship last year. So I don't think you need to be top 50. It obviously helps to be top 50.
They got boat race there. I think if you're going to win the conference, you're probably going to be a top 50 type of defense. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think top half of the Pac-12 is also reasonable. And I think there's a lot of upside for this defense, but there's a lot of pieces being put together, new schemes and all that stuff. So I'm not expecting that. But I think true, you're going to see more drives. So you might give up more points. So I want to see what that points per drive number is. So I think that's a little bit more accurate. But USC was terrible at that last year, too. I mean, this was a historically atrocious defense for USC. All the metrics, whatever metric you're looking at, was bad. So it's going to get a lot better. Is it going to get to like a top 25 defense? Probably not. But, I mean, if you're in like the 25 to 50 range, I think that's going to be – I mean, it's a huge, huge improvement over the previous year. Plus, you're going to have an offense that just scores a bunch of points.
It's going to be fun to do my stat tracking piece every week.
Yeah.
Last year was just brutal. Why am I doing these?
Everything.
It's getting worse and worse.
The holdup, though, is like USC is not going to jump into being a top 10 defense immediately. They just don't have the players for that yet. They don't have the horses. They've added some really big pieces, obviously. But how many guys on this defense are being talked about as potential first or second round draft picks? There's a couple, but it's not like, they got 6-7 guys that could potentially be first, second round picks. That's the type of defense that it takes to be a top 10, top 15 style defense.
Yeah. Well, we're past the hour. I mean, we have some more questions, guys. We can rapid fire some.
We got one more good one so far. Brandon just carrying the show with all these Facebook comments.
Oh, he loves the Facebook. Yeah.
Do you think that USC will be the most penalized team in the Pac-12 again this year? I know that SC fans, it is a plague, all the penalties that come through. Do you think that changes under Lincoln Riley?
I think it was Arizona State last year. I don't think USC was. It might have been number of penalties or penalty yards or something, but
USC was one of the worst in the country, though.
Yeah. ASU, I think, was
the worst. I think ASU was worse, but USC was like they were like in the bottom 5 in the nation.
Right.
So
I think they'll be a lot more disciplined, and I think they won't have as many boneheaded. You're still going to have boneheaded flags from time to time, but I think they'll be a lot more disciplined. But like Riley said, you still want that aggression, so they're still going to get flags. So I will say no.
Yeah, they'll go from bottom to middle, but here's a couple things. Like you said, there's going to be aggression. New guys coming in, and people trying too hard. But do you ever like this Shakespeare thing, like he doth protest too much? Like when we heard at Pac-12 Media Day, USC and UCLA are going to be treated. They're not going to be treated poorly. And Merton Hanks, the the director of football or whatever for the Pac-12, I forget his title. Same thing. Like they made a point of we're not going to like screw these guys over, which basically means we're probably going to screw these guys over.
So you heard we're going to screw these guys over.
That from what if you're going to say it over and over again, no one asked you, like no one even asked them about like how they were getting treated. Like someone did afterwards, but to bring it up multiple times, that's telling me they're getting ready because probably these guys are going to get screwed over a little bit.
Wow,
so
okay.
That's my theory.
Okay.
So, but I think they'll be a lot more disciplined. The accountability stuff is there. Like if you commit a dumb penalty, you're probably coming off the field, unlike before. Unless you had favored status, you didn't come off the field. I think that's not going to be the case here. So I'm going to go middle of the road Pac-12 penalties.
I think they'll still be in the bottom of the Pac-12. I think it's going to go back to even like the Pete Carroll days where they were still among the worst in the conference somehow. But last year, I just looked up, USC was number 126th out of 130 teams for fewest penalty yards per game at 75 penalty yards per game. But they were not last in the Pac-12. You were correct, Ryan.
All right. I know my Pac-12. Arizona State was bad. That's going to be a fun one. That Arizona State game, man, holy cow. Like, it might be too early. Like, it would have been great if USC was playing Arizona State later on. Because, I mean, we don't know when the NCAA decision is going to come down. Like, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. They had to get rid of most of the staff.
It's going to come down Thursday of that week.
So many transfers. Eric Gentry might have a huge game in that one. I don't know. It's going to be that's like must-watch TV. Arizona State, you got to just watch what happens there because it's probably not going to just be like Herm Edwards getting fired. It'll be like Ray Anderson. Like they might get rid of Michael Crow. Like maybe the worst president in Pac-12 history, the guy that really enabled Larry Scott to ruin the conference. USC and UCLA leaving. Like so much. Like Arizona State was kind of the center of just crushing the Pac-12 and everything. So it could be a lot happen. There could be some fireworks in Tempe this year. We'll see.
I know one thing that Chris wanted to talk about in Instant the other day that's kind of just something interesting after wrapping up fall camp is what Coach Riley mentioned is we're making this transition now out of fall camp. Kids are starting school, and we've got classes tomorrow, and then just finding and making that schedule. So maybe to wrap it up and overall thoughts about fall camp and then this new transition, because Rice in a couple weeks, what that transition is going to look like.
By the way, Jack's got school tomorrow. This is a school night for him.
10 a.m. 10 a.m. Monday through Thursday.
Wow. I'm going to have I missed class nightmare tonight. I still get like one a year. Like, oh my God, I overslept for my philosophy final. I haven't been in college in like 9 years.
You have a sympathy nightmare for Jack, so that's good.
Yeah.
Why is Jack starting so late? That's the better question. 10 a.m. Come on, you got to get those 8 a.m. classes, get everything done with before lunchtime.
10 a.m. is perfect. 10 a.m. is the
Was
perfect.
I the only one that had 8 a.m. classes?
Oh, no,
this was...
Dude, I was an engineer, man. We had all 8 a.m. classes. It was crazy.
Second semester freshman year, I thought I was so smart because I laid out my class schedule so I had Friday off.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize I had every class at 8 a.m. And I missed so many art discussions because I would take a nap and I would just never wake up.
Nice.
You guys would be jealous. I have no Friday classes and I only have to start at 10. 10's like the perfect time though. Gives you time to get breakfast, but you're not like way too asleep. But you do also get out of bed, so you're not wasting your whole day away and waking up at noon.
Yeah.
My college
I
had
miss the college
compulsory
days.
attendance, so we could only miss a certain amount of classes. And as a baseball player, that means you had to be at every class if you wanted to be able to go on all the road trips. So
I don't even want to know what your sleep schedule was like, college shotgun, because you're
2 a.m. to 7:48
a.m.
Because for his 8 o'clock class,
Yeah.
he got 12 minutes to get up and go to class.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 a.m. to 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. somewhere in there. That was usually the sleep
His
time.
adult sleep schedule makes college, students cringe. So I don't know. Like that's cringe.
All very similar.
Anyway,
All right. Do we want to wrap up with that, or we want to do some rapid fire here? What's the word, Ryan?
I think we could. Do you have some good rapid fire ones you want to do? We could do a couple.
I think we got a couple.
All right, let's do a couple
Andrew-
more and then we'll wrap it up.
Jack, feel free to jump in here as well. But Andrew asked, which position group is the biggest concern?
Just rush ends from a health standpoint.
Yeah, I think just the depth there. I think the rush ends could be effective, but there's not a lot of depth.
I'm still concerned about the defensive line. I know Thule's a monster, but I want to see those other guys make some plays first.
All right, fair.
What do you guys expect the attendance to be like for the home opener?
Popping.
I agree.
I think it's going to be like 68,000 announced, 69,000, something like that.
I'll get 70, baby. Let's go.
You think it's 70? All right, we'll see.
What's the sellout now, Ryan? 73?
77, I think. 77 something. I'm trying to. I'm doing a little research to see. Like people have asked on the peristyle. If you're not a member, by the way, USCfootball.com, VIP membership. You can post on the peristyle. The message board is bonkers right now. If you put up a post and no one responds in like in the first hour, it's like off the front page. It's crazy. But go check it out for $1. You can go sign up and get that out. But people were asking on the peristyle about some of the ticket sales. So I'm doing a little digging into that. But everything we've seen has been positive. And I think any events I've done, fans are very happy. I think you're going to see a lot of people in there. So yeah, you might maybe get 70 for the opener. It's Rice, but what's it, 3 p.m. kickoff?
Yep.
It's also Pac-12 Network, so you can't really watch it as easy. So that might help attendance a little bit too.
Got a lot of excitement right now. Roman asks, any chances that Damani Jackson wins a starting position by mid-season?
He's hurt right now, so he's a little bit behind. But yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, I mean he's got enough. I think Dante about him. The first thing he said was like just speed, and when you got talent like that, speed for days. you can get on the field. So yeah, I think he could win it.
He should have been an honorable mention for the 5 most yoked players too. And he was running the sprints the other day with the shirt off as we were after practice. He definitely deserves to be on that yoked list, and he's still fast. So I mean, Lincoln Riley talked about Marquise Brown in the post practice presser a couple days ago, saying he earned himself one of the top receivers in the country after being on the scout team preseason. So I think Damani Jackson, with all that talent, it could happen.
Nice, I like it.
Racer X asks, do you see any late transfers coming in? I do not see any. SoCal Dad asks, so Thule could be the edge rusher. That is a possibility. I think it was Lincoln Riley that mentioned that. Maybe it was Alex Grinch that said that he has been out there a little bit. PDX asked, who registers the first TD, and then who on the defensive side records the first turnover?
Real quick, I love the Racer X name, by the way. I mean, I wore the Speed Racer
Speed
shirt.
Racer.
Yeah, Speed Racer was such a good show. Oh my God, like that was, But anyway, all right. First touchdown.
It's a Mario Williams touchdown.
I was going with Mario Williams as well.
It's hard to not go Mario Williams, but
He's scored in pretty much every scrimmage, or he scored in the spring game in both the scrimmages, I believe. So, he's been a guy that's getting in the end zone pretty repeatedly.
And the first defensive turnover, is that what it was?
Yeah.
I'll say Thule strip sack.
I'll go Romello Height, strip sack. Yeah.
Kalen Bullock, INT.
There you go.
Nice.
You see Eric Gentry, middle of the field, INT.
Oh, okay.
Could be.
Jack, I like it.
You got some talented guys out there that can make some plays. Big T asked, there's a lot of positives coming out of fall camp. He said, what, in your opinion, are the two most the areas of biggest concern on the team right now?
I mean, I think that defensive front I'm pretty optimistic, but there's definitely, some concerns there. And, specifically just the rush ends just not having a whole lot of bodies there. I think that's a concern too. I don't have a whole lot of concerns on the offensive side of the ball. Like, I think they're just going to score points. Like, we heard from like Graham Harrell talk about all these different things. Like, all you're going to do is score points. Like, score a bunch of points. And they weren't scoring a bunch of points. They're going to score a bunch of points. Like, however you do it, if you're running the I formation, if you're running the triple option, I don't care. This looks like an offense is just going to score points, where the other offense would trip over their own self. They couldn't score in the third quarter, all that kind of stuff. So my concerns would mostly be on the defensive side of the ball.
Alan wanted to know, has there been more focus on technique under Lincoln Riley's regime than Helton's? The hype videos show a lot of unique drills for different positions. I would say yes, having not seen it in person as much as you guys, but just, the conversations that I've talked with some players and stuff from the workouts, seeing all the stuff that they did during the summer workouts, the different change of direction, the pop stuff that they were doing, their big grid patterns that they did. I think all that stuff is focusing on techniques that you're going to use on the field.
Yeah, a lot of technique stuff you can see in practice with those individual drills. And they just have so much more on-field support staff with their GAs and student assistants. Like, every position has at least 2 guys, and they can break them up into 2 groups when they're doing endos, and they can really get hands-on to kind of break it down like that. So you see a lot of that in our window of practice.
Yeah.
David want to know, do you see Raleek Brown getting some touches? If so, how do you think he'll be utilized? Do you see a little bit of Reggie Bush in him? We kind of answered this last week. Do see a little bit of Reggie Bush in him, just in the fact that he can catch the ball in the backfield. He is very elusive, and he has speed. But I think we've talked a little about him. Another question that included Reggie Bush. Any chance we see him lead the team out of the tunnel? And then Renee Cortez asked, any thoughts on Snoop Dogg leading the team out? I think Snoop Dogg is a much more viable option, just because Reggie Bush is going to be on the Fox kickoff show, so he will be wherever that show is. So unless they are doing a USC show, it would make it very difficult for him to be able to do that.
Yeah, Reggie's working, but Snoop, I'm sure he's working doing stuff, but not necessarily on Saturday. Probably not Saturday, early mornings or afternoons.
I want Shaq to lead the team out.
That would be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
No connection at all. His son went to UCLA
baby.
For a little while.
Lakers, baby.
Yeah.
Tell me you don't want Shaq out there? Come on.
If Bronny ends up at USC, like LeBron James lead the team out of the tunnel, that would be kind of fun.
Could be.
Yeah.
Cracking the question, just the logistics question. Which network gets a broadcast when it's a Big Ten versus SEC non-conference matchup? Usually that goes to the home team. Is that not right? Correct, Ryan?
Yeah, there should be home games. Yeah. So that's where, so like if USC was playing like at Ole Miss, like that could be on ESPN, something like that. So, but the home games are where you're, those are the ones you own the rights for, like the grant of rights thing. So like for the ACC, like they sell their grant of rights and everything. That's all. I think if they left, like the ACC would still own their home game rights, like the TV revenue and all that kind of stuff. That's why none of those schools can leave unless there's some legal challenging, but it doesn't seem like that's happening.
And final question comes from Todd. I'm going to direct this to you, Chris. How many additional recruiting commitments are expected before the season starts? Obviously, you and Gerard had a number that both of you guys threw out there a little while back, and USC's now at how many is it? Is it 14, 16?
16. Wait, is that part of the question? Or is it
No, they were just saying, how many additional do you think before the season starts? I think Gerard had said, one of you guys
18.
said 20.
No, Gerard said 18. Chris
Gerard
said 16.
said 20, and then he backed it. We had a little reevaluation if you wanted to change your number, and he went down to 18. I said 16, and I'm at 16. I think you could see upwards of 2, maybe 3, but I would say
in the next 2 weeks.
in the next 2 weeks, yeah, I think you could see 2. I definitely think you're gonna see at least 1 possibly. But yeah, Gerard has a shot to get to his 18. But I don't know if we're doing over, if they get 17, I lose, I busted.
Is it Price is Right
21?
style?
Yeah, I don't. Price is Right champion over here. This
yeah.
guy knows. This guy knows his Price is Right. But yeah, I would say 1 or 2. I think you're either gonna be at 17 or maybe 18.
Sweet. All right. Well, that was a really fun show. I definitely want to give a round of applause to Jack, who's just crushed it on the board. Thank you so much, dude. Sounds good when he's talking. He's pulling up our comments, doing all the different. There's a whole bunch of stuff you're going to do on the board, putting up pictures and different camera angles and all that stuff. I mean, I literally showed him in 5 minutes, and he just did it. So that was great. So
it was more than 5 minutes. I don't want to take too much credit. It was like half an hour.
We were about to start the show without the lights. He's like, "Do you guys turn the lights on?" Oh yeah, good idea. So we were doing all this stuff. So, but thanks, Jack, for doing that. You can check out. He's a sophomore journalism student at USC, so he'll be doing a bunch of stuff on the site this semester. So check out some of the stuff there. He
Plug
did
the Twitter.
instant analysis.
It's on the screen.
Oh.
Yeah. You gotta follow him on Twitter. Jack Smith PXP, which is play-by-play. So go check it out. And stuff. So thank you, Shotgun, for joining us all the way from the East Coast. I know it's late there. And Chris Trevino, reluctantly sitting here next to me. I hope we had a good time. We got it rolling a little bit. Whatever. All right. And thanks to everyone out there. If you're watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, or you're listening on the podcast or any of the replays afterwards. So thanks for really being a part of the show. It's a lot of fun when we get to have interactions with the live parts of the show and you guys send in your questions and stuff. We're going to love getting back to doing the live calls again, too. Makes the shows a little bit longer, but that's okay. We'll have some fun with that. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show. School starts tomorrow. We're getting ready. Countdown 13 days or a little less until USC kicks off against Rice. So hope you guys all enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.
Like and subscribe.